Abraham Lincoln once begged his closest friend to keep a secret until the day he passed away. That secret involved his mother and a truth that could have destroyed his career. For decades, people called the story a lie, but modern science just proved it was real.
Abraham Lincoln told one man a secret that could have destroyed his presidency. For 30 years, that man stayed silent. When he finally spoke in 1889, historians called him a liar.
Using advanced DNA testing, researchers found something in the bloodline of his mother that is frankly unsettling. It reveals how far a family would go to hide their past in a time when being born the wrong way was a social death sentence. What they found in the genetic code is darker than any legend. Confidential talk that changed history. Where was Abraham Lincoln born? Well, the history books we all read in school tell us Kentucky. A lot of people, including some historians though, question whether that is true. In 2015, geneticists ran the DNA of living descendants connected to the mother of Abraham Lincoln. They expected to settle a 150-year-old debate. Instead, they found two things. The first confirmed a secret Lincoln begged his closest friend to take to the grave. The second was a genetic marker so rare, so unexpected that it traced his maternal bloodline to a part of the world nobody predicted. What they discovered did not just rewrite the family history of Lincoln. It exposed how harshly America once treated children born the wrong way and revealed that everything we assumed about colonial ancestry was a lie. This is the secret that could have destroyed Lincoln. Here is what you need to understand about 19th century America. If you were born outside of marriage, you were legally nobody. The law called you filius nullius, which means child of nobody. You could not inherit from your father. You had no claim to a family name or property, and the social shame, it followed you everywhere. Unmarried mothers faced criminal charges, public punishment, fines, and being locked away in workhouses. Even after the punishments faded, the shame did not. Families hid children born this way for generations, raising them as cousins or nephews rather than speaking the truth. And get this, in politics, this was a weapon. Your enemies would use it to destroy your reputation, question your morals, and argue you had no right to hold office. Abraham Lincoln knew exactly how dangerous this secret was. Around 1850, Lincoln was riding in a buggy with his law partner, William H. Herndon, heading to court in Menard County, Illinois. During that ride, Lincoln said something that would haunt American history for over a century. According to Herndon, Lincoln told him, "Billy, I will tell you something, but keep it a secret while I live. My mother was born outside of marriage. She was the daughter of a nobleman, so-called, of Virginia." Think about that for a second. The man who would become the greatest president of America, saving the Union and ending slavery, was confessing that his own mother was born illegitimate. He believed his intelligence, his analytical mind, and his ambition all came from some mysterious, well-bred Virginia farmer or planter whose name was never recorded. Then he added something that still echoes today. "God bless my mother. All that I am or ever hope to be, I owe to her." Herndon kept his word. For decades, he said nothing. But Lincoln did not survive his presidency. And 24 years after the tragedy at the theater, Herndon faced a choice that would tear historians apart for over a century. A courthouse discovery would soon prove that the words of the president were not just rumors. Document that proved the president right. In 1889, Herndon published his book about the true life of Lincoln. He knew what he was doing. He knew the firestorm it would cause. But Herndon believed that truth mattered, even truth that made people uncomfortable. He had spent years collecting interviews, letters, and testimony from everyone who had known Lincoln, and he was not going to turn the man into a perfect marble statue. The Lincoln family was furious. People who wanted to protect the legacy of the president were outraged. Some called Herndon a liar or a man with a grudge. Robert Todd Lincoln, the surviving son of Abraham, spent years trying to control the image of his father and deeply hated the revelations of Herndon. But here is the catch. There was evidence, hard evidence, and it had been sitting in a Kentucky courthouse for a century. Deep in the Mercer County archives, researchers found a document dated November 24, 1789. It showed that a woman named Lucy Hanks had been indicted by a grand jury for a crime of intimacy outside of marriage. Now, in late 18th century Kentucky, these charges meant one thing. An unmarried woman had given birth. The existence of the child was the crime. This was not some abstract moral idea, it was something the law punished. Women convicted could be publicly whipped, fined, or locked away. The timeline fit perfectly. If Nancy Hanks, the mother of Lincoln, was born around 1784 and her sister Sarah around 1787, both were born before Lucy ever married anyone. The 1789 indictment lined up with a pattern of children born outside of a wedding. And get this, 5 months after that indictment, Lucy Hanks wrote a note giving consent to marry a man named Henry Sparrow. She spelled it out herself in her own handwriting. I do certify that I am of age and give my approval freely for Henry Sparrow to get out this or any other day. That note still exists today. You can see her spelling, and you can see the urgency. Lucy and Henry married on April 30th, 1790. Less than a month later, the court dropped the charges. Marriage had made Lucy respectable again. But Nancy still carried the name of Hanks, which was the maiden name of her mother. Because in the old law, children born this way were named after their mothers, not their fathers. The father remained a ghost. For over a century, historians fought viciously over what this evidence meant. Some argued Herndon was right and Nancy was born outside of marriage. Others insisted she was a legitimate child, claiming Lucy Hanks was actually a widow whose husband had died. This debate consumed entire careers. Researchers spent decades attacking each other, but neither side could prove anything for sure. The paper trail was just too thin. The frontier records were not complete enough. To settle this, they needed something that did not exist in 1889. They needed to read the genetic code itself. The lab results were about to reveal a signature that had been hidden for thousands of years. Laboratory verdict on a national mystery. In 2015, a team of genetic experts decided to end the debate once and for all. Suzanne Hallstrom, Nancy Rowe, Stefan Whitlock, Richard Hilleman, and Gerald Haslam had spent decades researching the Hanks family. Some had devoted their entire careers to this mystery. Hilleman alone had been reading everything he could find on the ancestry of Nancy Hanks since 1980. He researched papers at the Library of Congress and the University of Chicago. Now they had access to technology that previous generations could only dream of. Their weapon was mitochondrial DNA. This is genetic material passed only from a mother to a child through an unbroken female line. It does not mix or change. A woman today can carry the exact same sequence as an ancestor who lived centuries ago. Here is the deal. Abraham Lincoln has no living descendants. His last confirmed descendant, Robert Todd Lincoln Beckwith, passed away in 1985 without any children. The direct Lincoln line is gone. But mitochondrial DNA does not require the descendants of the president. It requires descendants of any woman in his maternal line. This means the sisters, daughters, and granddaughters of Lucy Hanks who carried the same genetic signature. The researchers spent years tracking down living people through multiple branches of the family tree. They needed to find people who could trace an unbroken female line back to Anne Lee Hanks, who was the grandmother of Nancy. They also needed descendants of the Shipley sisters to test the other theory. They identified two groups. Group A was living female line descendants of Anne Lee Hanks. If the theory of Herndon was correct, these people would all share the same DNA. The researchers collected samples from descendants of multiple daughters to make sure the results were correct. Group B was the descendants of the Shipley sisters, who some claimed were the real relatives of Lucy. The lab in Houston ran the tests. The results were announced on October 21, 2015, which was the 150th anniversary of the end of the life of Lincoln. And this is where it gets crazy. Every single descendant in Group A matched perfectly. They all belonged to the same rare group. Group B, the Shipley descendants, showed completely different DNA. The two groups shared no common maternal ancestor in history. The researchers went silent when they saw the results. They ran the tests again, but the data was undeniable. The Shipley theory was dead. Lucy Hanks was exactly who Herndon said she was, a Hanks by birth. And Nancy Hanks Lincoln was exactly what Abraham Lincoln had confessed. She was the daughter of Lucy Hanks and an unknown father. A 150-year-old debate was settled in a laboratory, but as the scientists looked closer, they noticed a genetic marker that should not have been in Virginia. Migration story written in the blood. When the researchers examined the specific group shared by the family, they found something that stopped them cold. It was haplogroup X1C. If you know anything about DNA, that name should make you stop and think. This is because X1C is incredibly rare, especially in families with old American history. The researchers were not expecting this at all. They were just trying to settle a family debate, not uncover a story about ancient human movement. But there it was, confirmed across multiple people. Here is the deal. All humans can trace their mother's line back to a single woman in Africa about 150,000 years ago. As her descendants spread across the world, random changes created different genetic signatures. These are like timestamps. They tell us when and where different groups split apart and moved. Most colonial Americans of European descent carry groups like H, J, or K. These reflect British, Irish, and German origins. Group H alone accounts for nearly half of all European maternal DNA. If you tested a random person in Virginia today, you would almost certainly find one of those. But X1C is something else entirely. Group X split into two branches about 20,000 years ago. One branch spread through Europe and even into Native American populations, but the other branch, X1, took a completely different path. It is found mostly in North Africa, the Horn of Africa, and the Near East. It is seen in regions around the Mediterranean like Egypt and Ethiopia. It never spread into Northern Europe the way other groups did. The highest concentration of this group anywhere in the world is among the Druze people of Israel, Lebanon, and Syria. There, it reaches 27% of the population. Scientists believe these people represent a genetic snapshot of the ancient Near East. X1C is one of the rarest branches of that line. The researchers noted that this rarity actually made their conclusion stronger. Finding identical matches across multiple people made the results very solid. But here is what it revealed about the mother of Lincoln. Somewhere in the deep past, the Hanks maternal line connected to people most Americans never associated with the frontier. Think about that for a second. The idea that colonial families were purely from one place was blown apart by these results. Human movement and mixing have been happening forever. The genetic world of early America was much more diverse than the stories ever admitted. This rare marker does not tell us who the father of Nancy was, and it does not reveal a recent scandal. What it reveals is something bigger. The whole narrative of pure bloodlines was always a myth, and that myth was used to judge and shame people like Nancy Hanks. Was the secret of Lincoln a burden or the fuel that drove him to be great? Do you think there are other presidents with secrets still hidden in their DNA? Tell me what you think in the comments, like this video, and subscribe for more.